action. I can't get no call to action, but I try, and I try, and I try, and I try.
Hello and welcome to Call to Action, the go-to podcast for anyone trying to make sense of the world of marketing, business and beyond. In an industry that is a minefield of utter bollocks, we aim to capture our heroes and allies from the front line to have a chinwag with. It's like Pokemon Go, with the single but vital exception that it's not a short-term bandwagon of shite. It's brought to you by Gasp, and I'm Giles Edwards. Today I've caught Dave Harland. Copywriter and messabouter with massive fingers, Dave helps businesses and brands speak to people with more personality via the medium of the alphabet. His favourite part of it all is getting paid to be silly. Remember the Accrington Stanley ad? You should. Dave's all-time favourite, it made him think milk was some superpowered juice that would make him grow up to be like Ian Rush. Well, today's the day. Long-time listeners will note that much like Rush re-signing for the Reds, this is his second call-to-action stint. Dave says since 72% of clients don't know what they want until they see it, and 86% of briefs aren't worth the bog paper they're printed on, and 104% of copy is totally subjective, much of the craft is based around a clumsy, sweaty fumble in the dark. And, on occasion, it blows your face off. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Nice one, Giles. Pleasure to be here.
It's normally 7 quickfires, but I think there's a few extras. So, number 1, cup of tea or G&T?
G&T, definitely.
Tank or Harley?
Oh, Tank. Yeah, definitely Tank. That was my nickname at school, Tank. I was the best at British Bulldog.
Amazing. Words or copy?
Oh, man, good shout. Still words deep down, but the grown-up me is edging more towards copy now.
Andy Maslin or Call to Action alumni Drayton Bird?
That's a tough one. I've met both of them. Both seem sound. I think just because of his kind of longevity and deep-rooted wisdom, it's got to be Drayton.
The Choice Factory or Copywriting Made Simple?
Choice Factory. Just opened my eyes to stuff that wasn't just copy. Amazing.
A size 5 Mitre Delta Casey or a magic set?
Casey, definitely the Casey. Yeah. I can't play football as well as I used to because I've done my ankle in, but yeah, still love football. Blasting those really wet, full-size Caseys into the school windows and getting told off by the teachers. Great memories.
Great memories. Right, 2 more. Liam or Noel?
Again, it's changed. I never used to be able to stand Liam, but it's Liam now. I like him more than Noel. I think Noel's gone a little bit off the boil for me. So yeah, Liam.
Oh, really? See, most people seem to have gone Liam to Noel.
I switched. I never liked his swagger years ago, whereas now I quite like his no nonsense. And I think Noel's just a bit safe now. And I quite like the edginess. Fair
enough. Right, last one. Betting on hedgehog duels or bringing a flamethrower to work?
I think it's the hedgehog duels, definitely. Yeah, that's the one. That's the story that I think that got more likes and comments and got me more business anyway. So definitely the hedgehog duels.
So I'm going to ask you more about hedgehogs in a sec. So
Sound.
To start the show, so we normally ask every guest about their path to where they are now. So we're going to link in the show notes to your first Call to Action episode, which was almost 1,400 days ago. Episode 17, and that gives the lowdown of your first jobs. What have you been up to since then, and how does it involve hedgehog duels?
Well, a lot's happened since then, hasn't it? We've had, a bit of drama involving a pandemic, and more recently, me and my fellow copywriters' jobs are under threat from our diligent robot overlords who will say and write anything that we prompt them, but usually in a really, really boring way. So going back, the last time I was on the pod was 2019 or late on in 2019, and I remember listening to it on my honeymoon. You sent me the link, so that was like September 2019, and then a few short months later, 6 months later, we were all in lockdown. And I suppose for me, I mean, for those who don't know me, I'm probably most active on LinkedIn in terms of my own marketing. So the lockdown in 2020 was the first time I really noticed, there was doom and gloom everywhere, like marketing wise. There was all of these CEOs of companies crawling out the woodwork. It could be like a product I hadn't bought for 8 years. And then it's like the CEO of this random company dropping into my inbox saying, "Hi, we really care about you at the moment." And it was just all kind of really insincere. So I thought, right, let's do a few little parodies of these. Everyone's quite somber at the moment. So I think there's call for keeping the mood up a little bit, or certainly keeping the mood a little bit lighter than it was. So that's what I did. I kind of, I used to write stuff with, I try and include quite a bit of personality and silliness, I suppose, but I really went all in on the humour from the start of the lockdown. I switched my strategy up to really attract more of the clients that wanted to do that fun stuff, and to alienate the clients who would never entertain that kind of approach. And it worked. The boring IT clients who used to come to me for blog posts, they're no longer coming to me. I'm getting more of the brands that are like, "Oh, we're a little bit boring," or, "We've been playing it safe. Can you do some more of the fun stuff? Because we've been reading the way you talk about copywriting and talk about your business on LinkedIn, and we really like that." So that's what I did. Yeah, went all in on the fun stuff. Just the full raft of my humorous take on things that are happening at the moment. I'm positioning myself against AI, so that's quite fun, taking the piss out of the robots. You've got these age-old copywriting tips. I kind of share more modernized, perhaps working class versions of those copywriting tips to make them a little bit more relatable for people. I take the piss out of the LinkedIn influencers and all the thought leaders who are taking themselves too seriously. Rewrite bad copy to show how easy it is to sprinkle a bit of personality on it. Tell stories, parodies, everything really. So yeah, work-wise and kind of self-promotion-wise, that's what I've been up to in the meantime. And that's helped me get some really nice projects with some really, really cool brands as well, and work on some good stuff. So it's already come to fruition.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny because even though you and I have known each other fairly well for some time now, and your first episode was coming up to 4 years ago now, it's mad. I haven't actually heard you say that the trigger of the pandemic and those CEOs coming out the woodwork and realizing they've got all this data they could, perhaps send messages to as a trigger. And I suppose in many ways it's because, and again, something we talked about 4 years ago now was we celebrated a poem called Dogs that you wrote when you were a very young lad, 10 years old, perhaps, maybe a bit older, for your nan, which we had the great Ollie Mines narrate in that episode. But so humour and that kind of idea of bringing personality and just fun. And I mentioned in your intro, getting paid to be silly. So silly, but silly in the best, meaning of the word, has always been there. So it wasn't so much now I'm going to start trying to use humour. It was just, that was always there, wasn't it?
Definitely. I get some other copywriters and even brands saying, can you make us funny? And I'm like, look, you don't want to if you're not naturally funny, or if you haven't kind of got this background in humor, don't force it, because there's nothing worse than being kind of inauthentically funny. Like me growing up in kind of northwest of England, Liverpool, kind of known for its humour and wit, I suppose. Growing up throughout my family and all my mates, if you didn't have a quick comeback, you were dead meat. You had to be, think on your feet, and you had to be really witty. In school, I was the kid that did the impressions of all the teachers. I was obsessed with comedy from the age of probably 6 or 7 or 8, with the likes of the Fast Show and Harry Enfield, and then later The Office and Alan Partridge and Peter Kay more recently, Vic and Bob, all of that type of stuff. So I was really kind of into all of that stuff, from observational comedy to character comedy to surrealism and stuff. So when I started kind of using that as part of my own kind of marketing and promotion, it never ever felt forced. It was always there. I just never really leaned all into it like I did at the start of the pandemic. And I just found a way to really just use all the kind of bits that had been lying around in the background, in terms of comedy, was mentioned before, character-based stuff. I use characters, as people can probably tell in some of my stories. There's certainly observational stuff, so I'll be looking at the stuff that's happening with AI at the moment, and making my own little observations about that people perhaps aren't thinking about. So all of those little kind of elements of comedy I've kind of naturally woven into the way I do my marketing now, and it's definitely not forced. It feels authentic, and above all, it's fun to do. Like I was in a company for 10 years, and I was bored shitless for 8 of those years. And ever since I've gone freelance, I'm also since leaning on the humour side of things and the comedy. I never have that dread on a Monday anymore. I get up and it's like, right, sound, what have I got today? My mind's always flying with new ideas. So it keeps me on my toes and keeps life interesting as well. So it's got loads of benefits for me, I suppose.
And how much of that do you think about in advance, and how much do you kind of structure those stories that you write, especially your brilliant LinkedIn work? And the reason I'm asking this is on the last episode we released was with Rosie and Faris, and I made the point to Faris, I think, that I'm always wary of the industry becoming very formulaic. So how much are you kind of following a formula, and how much are you just being, I suppose, naturally funny?
Yeah, I suppose I'm certainly not consciously following any kind of formula. I think I did a talk to the marketing meetup a couple of years back where I talked about how to write more engaging stories on social media. And I certainly kind of presented some formulas there, which is just the kind of really simple, age-old, beginning, middle and end stuff. Write a compelling intro headline to hook people in. Make sure the middle bit is, intriguing enough to get people from the first word to the last. And then at the end, never leave a dead end. Always have somewhere to go. It doesn't have to be a call to action. It could just be, just plant a little seed about where they can find you in future. So that formulaic kind of side of things, it certainly lives there when I'm writing stories. And I suppose, like, my background is journalism. I did journalism at uni. Even though I've been copywriting now for getting on for 20 years, those kind of fundamentals of structuring a news article and a story to have that headline that draws you in, and then you've got an intro with that, people have to read to get to the nitty gritty of the article. Again, those are the fundamentals that kind of are part of the structure. That said, most of the stuff I do is reactive. It's only really once I have, say, a series. So I do this series on LinkedIn. I've done like 50 of them now, called Confuse the Scammers, where a scammer gets in touch with me, usually in the DMs, and then I kind of steer them down a ridiculous rabbit hole by, making up a story. Don't know, wherever the conversation goes, just to see how long I can keep them, engaged for, and also to see the funniest bit for me is seeing their reactions to the absolute, like, the craziest scenarios that I can make up on the fly. Like they're like either deadpan reactions or like the questions where they'll go, "What?" It's almost like, what? Like, what? Where's this guy taking me? So, so they're the stuff that I'll do more reactive. But there's no real kind of comedy structures. Like I don't write joke. I listen to the audiobook of the guy that founded The Onion. So that this guy, Scott Dickers. And within that, I think his book's called How to Write Funny. So I want to do a course eventually called How to Write Funny Copy. But his one is all How to Write Funny. So it's the art of writing comedy. And he goes into detail about how to write jokes. And it's stuff that I'd never even considered. It's like you're sitting down. It's almost like you've got a spreadsheet and you're putting down, what the aim of the joke, who's the subject, who's the target, how can I twist it? And then you go through, you put it through like all of these funny filters. So there's like, I think this is the 11 or 12 funny filters. I can't remember now, it was a while ago since I listened to it. But there's these funny filters. So one of them is, sarcasm, another one's irony, another one is parody. And then you go through the full realm. So whatever you're talking about, say it was AI, these AI chatbots, to write jokes about that in, the typical comedy joke right away would be to filter the subject of what I want to talk about through all of these funny filters and try and eke a joke out. Whereas my writing, because it's not necessarily, joke, punchline, that kind of style. It's more of a story, and it's more of, I suppose, certainly the scammer stuff. It's more kind of surrealism. It's definitely taking the scammers on a kind of weird journey. I do just write them on the fly, and I think for me, I get people quite a lot saying, "I don't know where you find the time for this stuff. Like, where'd you find the time?" And I'm like, "Look, I get business off the back of these stories, so I make time to write these stories. Like, this isn't just me messing about. I'm getting work off the back of it." That said, the stories that I come up with, it's almost like I'm testing myself. Have I got the ability to create a character, create a story, create a narrative, and write it on the fly? And I kind of use that to help my writing, if anything. So I never structure them in advance. Occasionally, there'll be I'll have a little idea at the start. So I've got one which I haven't published yet, where I basically pretend to be Daniel LaRusso out of The Karate Kid. And I've done it a couple of times with Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters, and I did in Indiana Jones, where I pretend like I'm on some mad quest, and the scammer's like, what's this guy on about? But the most recent one is where I tell us I'm pretending to be Daniel LaRusso in Karate Kid. So I'm starting to like Photoshop my head on Daniel standing next to Mr. Miyagi as he's doing the wax on, wax off and stuff like that. But it's the kind of planning of it and the structure of it is only really born from an initial idea. Where it then goes to is all dependent on what the responses are from the scammer, I suppose, and then I try to just react, how I can. It doesn't always work out. Some end up really boring and shit, and it's like, oh, I've backed myself down a dead end here. I've ruined that one. But I get that many now. It's like there's always another one that I can be working on.
Have you got a favourite one yet? Or even like favourite response from a scammer?
It wasn't even a scammer. The very, very first one. So I spoke about this in my newsletter last week. It just happened out of nowhere. So the United States Space Force, which I thought was a parody, I thought it was a spoof, because there's a show on Netflix called US Space Force. But they did a tweet back in, I think it was 2020, maybe 2021. And it was like a really earnest tweet, like, "Can you imagine your loved ones coming down from the attic with your medals, achievements, and honors, asking about the time you shaped the strategic environment? How would you even begin to explain that? By being part of the shaping." So I thought, oh, this is just like a promo for a Netflix show. But the more I looked into it, there's actually a United States Space Force, so like Space Police, which blew my mind. So I did a parody of it. Although it wasn't even a parody. I screen grabbed that bit and stuck it on LinkedIn with a post that said, "My 2-year-old just came down from the attic with a load of achievements in his hands and said, 'Dad, tell me about the time you shaped the strategic environment.' The whole family cheered. I wondered how I was even going to explain. Absolute scenes." So I posted that, just a bit of a piss take. And then some guy, again, really earnestly, not a scammer, one of my followers, he put, "Your 2-year-old was in the attic alone and able to carry down a load of achievements. By God, your son has a good vocabulary for his age." So the second he wrote that, I was like, this guy believes me. Like, he's not seeing the joke in this. So I thought, let's just see where it goes. So I replied, yeah, he's very advanced for his age. His dad shaped the strategic environment, and then just took it like further. And he carried on.
It's the one that led to Baby Harvard.
That's exactly what it is, yeah. I'd love to believe the story. As a parent, I can't see the plausibility. So I then made up, just again, on the fly, I just said, oh no, he is very advanced for his age. So advanced that he's now enrolled in Baby Harvard. And he's under the tutelage of the brilliant Professor Henry Gremlin. So then it's just back and forth. I was telling him all about like my son Clive. I called him Clive, 2-year-old called Clive. Again, just dropping little breadcrumbs and thinking, the penny's going to drop soon. Oh no. This went on all day until like the next day he put, "Were you having me on? I've Googled Professor Gremlin and Baby Harvard and can't find anything." So that just sent me west, because I Googled Professor Henry Gremlin, and the Google image search that comes back is just, the Gremlin with the smoking jacket on and a pipe and glasses out of the film Gremlins, just staring back. So I was just laughing for about 4 days after that. I was like, oh, this is hilarious. So I'd managed to kind of bewilder this poor chap who, the penny didn't drop for him. So having done that, I thought, oh, there's a nice little story there. So screen grab that, package it up, stick it on LinkedIn, just as a way of adding to the daft and silly stories and stuff that I was doing. And then, scammers had been dropping in my DMs. So I thought, let's just try it. Let's just try and respond. So I've done, all sorts. I've made up fake bank statements from banks called Holy Fucks and Santander. I've done, weird letters banning me from WhatsApp, all completely made up with ridiculous reasons. And I've had gophers driving gopher-powered Jeeps called Keith's the gopher, not the Jeep. I've been, like you said at the start, I've been doing illegal hedgehog fighting in the back streets of Bogota in Colombia, and that's why Holy Fucks, my bank blocked my account because I was gambling too wildly. And all sorts, I've done like 50 of them, and they do, like I said, to get me business. I get brands like approaching me and agencies and stuff. We read that till the end. I've shared that amongst all of our group on WhatsApp. Can you write stuff like that for us? So it really is that's kind of simple. So and it's dead fun. It's so fun to do. When they turn out nice, like the Daniel LaRusso one, I haven't released that yet. It just sounds really sad. You shouldn't laugh at your own jokes, but I'll read that every couple of weeks. I'll read that back and just go, bloody hell! Like, what must that scammer have been thinking? Yeah, funny.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's funny, you said earlier about people asking you how much time you spend doing this, and is that what you do all day, so on and so forth. And actually, I think the comparison there really is it's not so much that, because of course it must take time to do this, but it's versus what they're doing to win business themselves, and they might fall into the pandemic CEO trap of just sending out emails. You bought this 7 years ago. We also sell this type of stuff. Whereas what you're doing is it's more like, there's a quote that I've shared before from, I think it's Walt Disney, and I'm sure Dave Trott's got written all sorts about this, about rather entertaining and hope people learn something than try and educate people and hope they were entertained. There's something about in entertaining people to engage people. So like you mentioned earlier, that brands shouldn't always try and be funny, but I think maybe the one consistent thing is they should be entertained at least. And that's exactly what you're doing with Confuse the Scammers. Yeah,
I mean, that could, absolutely. I mean, humour, I've just found, even just from the brands that I've worked with, it's a bit of a cliche, but it naturally puts people in a good mood, doesn't it? It captures attention. You kind of associate those good feelings with the brand, and then you remember those afterwards. So it has like a three-pronged thing. And back to you mentioned the choice factor at the start. Just a really simple kind of behavioural science thing is that people are more likely to buy when they're in a good mood, because advertising on plain magazines is more fruitful for the brands than advertising on the inside of buses, because people are happy and they've got cash on the hip when they're going on holiday, whereas when they're on a bus, they're going on a commute to work probably. So just little tiny things like that all nudge towards humour being effective, and that's what it boils down to, really.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a listener question coming up a bit later about AI specifically, but I suppose in terms of your battle with the robot overlords, that's something that robots will struggle to write, I suspect.
Yeah, it looks that way. I mean, we're obviously only on version 1.0 of the chatbot so far, so I can see them getting better at it, but it's still all based on stuff that's happened before. They're not creating something new. They haven't got our weird and wonderful brains, so everything is based on stuff that's happened before. So that kind of create the natural creativity of the human brain to link crazy to really disparate things. Will they ever get there? That's my question.
As I mentioned, we do have dozens of listener questions, but before we go there, you're opening a copywriting agency, and I'm dying to hear more about that. Can you do a reveal?
Yeah, absolutely. So since I started freelancing, it's been like 8 years. So it's just been me. And in that time, certainly since I started, going all in on the funny stuff on LinkedIn, I've been getting probably way more leads than I can kind of handle. So I probably only have the capacity at the moment to take on, I'd say, 1 in 20 projects. And the sad thing is I'm having to turn down loads of really cool stuff because, there's only one of me. So for the past 6 or 9 months, I've been in chatting to another good copywriter mate of mine about opening this agency, just so basically I can start saying yes a bit more, and I can start working in a little bit more of a kind of creative copy director role. So I won't be doing as much of the day-to-day writing on these projects. We'll be working with kind of sector specialist copywriters who really know their stuff, but all of the work will still be going kind of through me. So the agency, we're calling it Copy or Die. So it's words and ideas for brands that want to live forever. So that's the kind of premise. So we're basically going to be kind of dramatizing the importance of original, powerful copy at a time when, it's being really devalued by AI. So, and ramping up that drama by making copy a matter of life or business death. And having loads of fun with the idea that, death becomes brands with shit copy, really. And, there's other brands out there who would kind of having that kind of approach as well, with the likes of Liquid Death at the moment. We all know how, if you've seen their stuff, you know how funny and engaging it is. You've got Dead Happy Life Insurance, there's that kind of making fun of the taboo. It feels a little bit edgy, I suppose. But with us, we'll be targeting not so much the one-man bands, like purposefully called it Copy or Die. You asked at the start about words and copy. I purposefully branded myself the word man when I started, because I knew I'd be working with, small, maybe even one-man bands. Frank's factory, that makes, I don't know, washers for washing machines, and he wouldn't have a clue what copy was. Whereas me saying, I'm the word man, I can write the words that will make people understand what you do, that made sense. Whereas for an agency, we want to be targeting slightly bigger brands, or they already know what copy is, so we don't have to do that kind of hard sell convincing. So we're basically doing original positioning that differentiates those brands, consistent tone of voice and personality everywhere they show up, and campaigns that grab attention and keep the brands fresh. So more of the persuasive, shorter form copy, brand position and tone of voice, that type of stuff, than blog posts and case studies and stuff. We'll probably certainly won't be advertising for that type of stuff. I think the longest copy we'll do is with website copy. But they're the brands we'll be targeting. And also, like I mentioned, we'll be working with brilliant sector specialist writers. So no juniors. We're going to be working with people who know their stuff, other people probably in a similar boat to me who've been freelancing for at least like 5-6 years, or certainly, copywriting for that time. So they already know like an industry or sector inside out, or they are, media specialists, so they're good at email campaigns, or they're good at tone of voice, that type of stuff. And we're hoping there'll be plenty of work, to throw around, because at the moment there's a lot of very worried copywriters out there who have admittedly found this year tough. I'm hearing lots of reports that teams are being halved at some smaller agencies while they test out AI. Hopefully this will create quite a lot of work for those people who have found it tough.
Nice. I had a few questions there I was going to ask you, but you think you've answered every single one of them.
I've got my pitch right, haven't I?
Yeah. I was only partly trying to stitch you up in the quick fires, asking words or copy as well, specifically because you're branded as the word man and your agency's copy. So you batted that away before I even had a chance to lob it at you.
Nice one.
I'm going to lob some more at you. Actually, before I do, can people head anywhere to find out more on Copy or Die, or do we just need to stay tuned a bit longer?
The website isn't launched yet, so when it's launched, we've got the domain and stuff, so it's copyordie.co.uk. But for the time being, if you get my newsletter, which is at my current website, or the website out, the Wordman won't be going anywhere, it'll still be me, but you can sign up to my newsletter at my website, which is thewordman.co.uk. And I'll be doing like little emails to get people on like a wait list. For the first few months, we'll only be taking clients that sign up to a wait list, which is going to be through my newsletter. So if you sign up to that, you can get yourself on the wait list.
Well, the newsletter, the word is linked to in this episode, so it should be easy for people to find.
Time, weather, and...
We interrupt this podcast to announce that we will never interrupt this podcast with ads. Ads that awkwardly nudge you to contact the pod's host, Giles, at gasp.agency. Only last week, some pod listing companies did just that, calling for guidance on research and brand positioning. But we're definitely not asking you to do that. Anyway, back to the show.
I arched to give him better access, as his fingers left a trail of heat on their way to cut my full breath.
Whoa! Sorry. We'll have none of that before the watershed. Hang on.
Right,
Oh,
listener
that's
questions it is. So asking the general public for their opinion, be it on Brexit or boat names, is notoriously fraught with danger, but that's not stopped us asking. So you've got quite a few absurd ones I'm going to hurl at you, Dave. So starting with Call to Action alumni, the wonderful Elisel McDonald. She's got two here. The first one is probably quite quick. Question for Uncle Tony. Is he a briefs or a boxers man?
Briefs, absolutely. Yeah, he's all about efficiency, is Tony. So everything, and he tucks his t-shirt into the briefs as well for kind of maximum holdage of whatever's dangling down there. It's all in a neat package.
Just to communicate he's winning life.
Yeah.
Her second question is something, copywriting and AI. It's exactly how she's worded it. So I know you've touched on AI a few times and the robot overlords, but is there anything, have you got any other stance or opinion on AI? And is it only a threat to copywriting? Is it something that copywriters can utilize? Is it going to be beneficial?
I don't think it's going anywhere, is it? So I think trying to resist it is futile. So let's just look at it from a more practical point of view. I'm just purely positioning against it at the moment to kind of demonstrate the benefits of human creativity and certainly the humour side of things. But I think seriously, it's probably going to overtake Google as the first port of call. And I think, we've seen Google Bard, and you've got Bing have kind of incorporated it into their search engine, aren't they? So rather than getting, a load of ads and 20 searches when you type in a question, it's probably just going to give you the most syndicated best answer. So it'll certainly speed things up that way. But I think in kind of creative terms, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years now. I've got my own little kind of ways of coming up with mad ideas and little formulas and little techniques, little go-to things. I think for people who haven't perhaps got, that experience, haven't got those techniques, either only a few years doing it, or people who perhaps struggle when they're faced with a blank page and they really don't know where to turn to when coming up with that idea, I think they'll find it massively useful, and it will probably become, all the chatbot bros and the AI gurus and all the stuff, they're saying at the moment, you won't be replaced by AI, you'll be replaced by someone using AI. I mean, a bit dramatic, I think, but there'll certainly be copywriters, even designers as well. I'm not just limiting this to copy, using AI almost as part of their kind of creative process. Whereas I will still probably be using my pen and paper processes at the moment. At the start of projects, I'll split a page up into 4 boxes and write whatever I'm writing about, get down all the rhymes, all the idioms, all the synonyms, all the stuff, all my experiences with that product. I'll be doing the kind of research the old school way. I think that will kind of die a death with the newer, younger copywriters who will just use it as part of their day-to-day. It'll be like, when Google was out 20 years ago, I was at uni, I was like, oh, what's this Google? Like, I'd only just started using Google. And now, we say Google it, don't we? It's its own verb. Whereas AI and the chat GPTs of this world, which are all new and fancy now at the moment, I think they'll just become part of what we do because they'll make things a lot quicker. I think the one thing I've got a big issue with at the moment is not necessarily the people using it. It's more back to what I said about those like chatbot bros, and it's like 10 ways to 10x your productivity, and it's just like, look, mate, we've still got to do the hard work here. We can't just press a button and magically get a load of ideas that are going to transform, your next campaign. It doesn't work like that. You've still got to have the kind of fundamentals and even the strategy behind it. You see them saying, give me a 400-word blog post about X, Y, Z. It's like, that's all well and good. That's great. And you can write it in Shakespeare's tone. But it's like, does that align with my strategy? And will it really change things and improve things for my company? They're almost like they're going straight for the solution rather than going, what's the problem here? What are we trying to solve? So I think that's the only thing I've got an issue with, people trying to fast track too much. I think I wrote something in my email a few weeks back. A few people had issue with it. I said it's fast tracking us towards the biggest era of marketing mediocrity the world has ever known. And I do stand by that. I think the more we allow robots and not our own human brains to kind of come up with the ideas and really steer them towards stuff that's going to answer the brief, I think we're in choppy waters. I also mentioned that it's more of a tool for the underskilled and the overwhelmed at the moment, which a few copywriters pulled me up over and went, I'm trying to use it. That's like devaluing my skills. And I'm like, look, that's just my opinion at the moment. I do think for people who are overwhelmed, there's more channels than ever. People are having to write more captions for social media and stuff than ever before. So it's going to help people write 100 iterations of a message. Are they going to be 100 really engaging iterations? Probably not, but that's kind of where we are. And the underskilled is just back to what I said before about it's more the experience, because I've been doing it for yonks. I've got these little techniques. And if you haven't been doing it for yonks, you haven't got the skills to come up with an idea. You might want to use one of these tools. So that's where I come at it from.
I think there's also a benefit to being around now at the birth of something new, because I've long believed or noticed, in fact, that people who are older than Google are better at using Google. I don't know why that's true, but it certainly seems to be true. Whereas people who have grown up with it always being a facility or a tool, if you like, don't seem to reach for it or use it in the way that I think others might do. That might be a flawed statement. I'm sure people can correct me, but it's certainly a very valid observation I've made in the last few years.
Yeah, no, I'd go along with that. And again, you've only got to scroll on LinkedIn, and every third post is how to 10x your productivity using these AI tools.
Yeah.
And there was like one guy, his bio was, ChatGPT expert. He'll be an expert in threads next week. It's only been out 5 days. But he was like saying, how to do this, how to do that, it's going to change your life. And I just replied, what happens if the Wi-Fi goes down? And he just didn't, no response. Like, it got load of people who are kind of, who follow the stuff that I do were like, oh yeah, it's true. I'm like, I watched a podcast with Darren Brown about 6 months ago. And they were asking him about, how did he get into, hypnosis and all of that stuff? How did he learn there's no hypnosis school, is there? And he went, you know what? He said, I've read everything there was to read about it. He said, if there's a book written about hypnosis, he said, I've got it or I've read it. He said, I've studied it to the ends of the earth. He said, just so that if something went wrong in one of my shows, I could sort it out. I know how to go backwards. I know the long way around. And I think the danger with just being able to type a prompt in and press a button is that, when you come up with this idea for a concept and you're in a pitch with a brand and they say, oh, that's a really good idea. Where did you come up with that idea? And you go, type the prompt into thing. And it's like, it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to explain the whole history lesson of the idea and go back to where it came from, why it's going to enter the brief, why it's going to be effective, all of that type stuff, knowing the long way around why it works. And yeah, for me, Darren Brown hit the nail on the head. He was like, if I'd have just learned this hypnotherapy on YouTube, if someone didn't wake up or something went wrong, I wasn't having to rely on YouTube to sort it out. I knew exactly what the steps were to kind of go backwards. And I think that what I'm alluding to is the same thing I think is true for creativity. If you understand and you've learned the long way of doing it and come up with those ideas, the chatbots and stuff should only ever be a supplement to that, should only ever be, a way of getting you to either past a blank page or maybe coming up with other ideas when you're struggling a little bit, rather than just pressing a button and it being the complete solution and the complete output, which I think a few businesses and brands who really don't understand, let's face it, they don't understand the benefits of effective copy. A lot of them are just going, yeah, that kind of looks all right, we'll take that. Whereas they don't even know whether it works or not. So that's what it is.
I'm not sure if Angela Rapley expects me to ask you this, but I can't resist. Who is the best Lord? Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Dance, or Lord of the Flies?
Bloody hell. Blau's wearing Tycoon, Michael Flatley. No, it's it's the serious non-Partridge answer. It's probably Lord of the Rings, just because of Tolkien's, mad character naming strategy, and created a whole language, didn't he? Fucking hell. Give the man his due.
Which was even better than Blau's wearing Tycoon.
Yeah.
Well, Joel Stein almost mirrors the start of Angela's question. What's the best word?
Best word? It's changed recently, only because I drop it into every fourth scammer story now. So it used to be zigzag. I loved the double Z of zigzag. Yeah. Discombobulate was up there for a while, but now it's the really puerile bumhole. Just the word bumhole. It just makes me laugh every time I hear it, every time I say it. Just the word bumhole. There you go.
Right, question from a friend of ours, Mel Barfield. How's fame treating you, and how do you deal with it when people come up to you at events and start talking about LinkedIn like they know you but have zero clue who they are? I happen to know also you were recognised in Belfast recently, so I'm going to throw that into the mix.
Yeah, I do normally just say, speak to my agent. Yeah, go and speak to my agent over there. He's 5 paces behind me at all times. His name's Gary Champagne. That's just that's an in-joke for people who get my newsletter. My agent is called Gary Champagne. Yeah. It's not really, no. Very awkwardly, to be honest. How do I deal with it when people go, oh, hi, I get your LinkedIn, or, I'm signed up to your newsletter. I kind of go, I'm just shit at taking compliments, I suppose. And I normally just go, oh, nice one, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, sound. And then just don't really have a stock answer. And yeah, the Belfast thing, that was a weird one. I was on a night out in Belfast with a few of my mates. I live in Liverpool, Belfast, miles and miles away from where I live. And yeah, someone came up to me in a bar surrounded by a load of lively Irish music and went, are you Dave Harland? And I was like, oh, come on, lads. If you pull it up to this, I genuinely thought they'd been putting it up to me. But no, I mean, I'm shameless about my promotion. Let's face it. I'm every day on LinkedIn. I'm putting my own stuff out there. So I suppose it's only to be expected that there might be, someone in some city somewhere who sees, my massive face and goes, oh, I kind of recognise that because I see him every day promoting his own stuff on LinkedIn. So that was it. But back to Mel's question. Yeah, just very awkwardly. And I just go, yeah, sound. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, given you're bad at taking compliments, I'm going to move on to Sarah Starling. So she says, there's 2 parts to this. I like the start. Is it true that he secretly wrote the song Words Don't Come Easy to garner sympathy and pull in more clients? Oh, and please can Dave write more scripts to be voiced? There's a notable lack of humour in my inbox. I think clients have forgotten how powerful it is. So some nice words from Sarah.
Answer the first question. No, I didn't write that one as much as I would have loved to. No, although I did write the Cat Stevens song, Words. Was it Cat Stevens? I know Boyzone did it anyway, but yeah, I mean, I should know that because I get royalties all the time. So yeah, I wrote that, Words. What was the second part?
She just wants you to write more scripts to be voiced and has noticed a lack of humour in her inbox. And she says clients have forgotten how powerful it is. I don't disagree with Sarah at all, but I do think I've started to see a lot more wit in ads in general. And I hope that momentum continues.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's been a little bit more because there was it Kantar had done a study from the last 20 years looking at humour in advertising, and it had a bit of a nosedive. It had gone from 52% or something. It had gone down to 38%, or a massive jump, almost 50% drop off in humour in advertising. So, I mean, you see it in Super Bowl, don't you? Super Bowl ads, they see the value in that more kind of brand awareness type stuff rather than the conversion stuff. But yeah, scripts, I think there's something that we certainly want to be getting more into with Copy or Die with the agency. As a freelancer, the clients that have approached me over the past 6 or 7 years, it tends to be more of the social media ads, write an email campaign for us. So it's more of the day-to-day stuff rather than scripts tend to come with the bigger agencies who are writing TV scripts or radio scripts. So I've done them really sporadically, but they're definitely something I want to get more into. And yeah, they'll be laced with humour, if not humour, something else impactful to make them stand out, because there's nothing worse than a really dull script.
True. Question from Belen Wilson. She says, has he ever been approached by the Met Police or MI5 to join the fraud team? And more seriously, how and why the replying to spam, scam mail, which we sort of covered, but I like the idea of you being approached by someone to join their fraud team.
Yeah, no MI5, no one like that. But the head of the Anti-Scam Alliance wants to do something like a collaboration with me, which I can't really say too much about because we're in discussions at the moment. But yeah, someone has noticed. Someone within that kind of sector has noticed me and noticed the stuff that I've been doing and want to do something to want to work with me to help them promote it. So
amazing.
But it's certainly no, what's the film? Catch Me me if you can, Frankie
I was
Abagnale.
just about to say that, yeah.
At the end, he starts working, like, finding out, about check fraud and all of that stuff. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what my future holds? Maybe I could be, part of the anti-scam alliance and MI5. I'd quite like that. MI5, FBI. I'd look good. I'd look good in a black suit. I'd have to slim down a bit, but I think I'd work it well.
The Leonardo DiCaprio of copywriting. I like that. That's a
I'll
good
take
one.
that.
I also like the fact that Frank Avignon was, very successful at scamming, whereas you just baffle the brains of scammers.
Yeah, it's the other way, isn't it? Yeah, maybe not.
Right, this will have to be our last listener question, and I think you know what the question will be as soon as I tell you that it's come from Matt Webster. Matt wants to know, when does the Uncle T merch drop?
Uncle T merch. Well, it's been in the offing for a while. So Tony's been part of my life for 4 years now. 2019, I originally started telling stories about Big T, and I've got 150 mini tales from his weird and wonderful life in the background. So it's just when I finally get my arse in gear and write the book that I've been promising one of my friends who's going to be helping me publish it, promising him for a while. Other stuff took over, so I haven't been able to. But for anyone that doesn't know, Uncle Tony, he first appeared on my LinkedIn feed in 2019, basically as a response to all of the vacuous platitudes and truisms that you'll see on the platform from the likes of, well, it started with the guy called Oleg Vishnopolsky. One of his posts was, "Do good and good will come to you." So it was just like obviously, you lunatic. So I replied, actually, 3 years ago, my Uncle Tony performed an overzealous Heimlich maneuver on an old lady choking on a Werther's original at a real amusement arcade, inadvertently shattering all her ribs and causing her lungs to implode. Tony, if you're reading, I'm coming to visit on Tuesday, mate. We all still love you. So he was trying to do good, but good didn't come to him. He got banged up. So that was where my first tales of Tony began. And since then, it spun into Simon Sinek's words of uninspiration. Some of the stuff he puts on, man. Creating something new is easy. Creating something that can last is the challenge. It's like, did you get that out of a fortune cookie, Si? It's like craziness. I don't know where they come up with this. I'm hoping that it's not him. I'm hoping he just has a bewildered team of social media gimps writing his stuff, and he wouldn't put his name anywhere near that, because he actually sounds quite articulate when you hear him speak. But I just don't buy it. So you've got, Simon Sinek, Gary V, who else? Adam Grant, one of the LinkedIn celebrities. So that's a really long-winded way of saying Uncle Tony merch is dropping as soon as the book's out, I suppose, which I'm still yet to write.
There's a timeline for you. The final part of the interview then remains the same, Dave, our 4 pertinent posers. So be interesting to see if these have changed in the last 4 years. So what advice would you give to your younger self is number 1?
I think last time I was on, I said, have a laugh. And that absolutely hasn't changed. If anything, it's exacerbated. It's gone even more, because when I started off, I was of the ilk, I was told by an old boss, like, you've got to be serious to get on in business. And the fact that I am absolutely, not serious. I'm serious probably about 4% of the time when I have to deal with, my accounts, or when I'm having initial briefing meetings with clients, and we really have to talk about aims and objectives and stuff. But then as soon as the work begins, it's just, look, have a laugh, just let your brain go to weird and wonderful places, because that's where some of the most attention grabbing, wacky, memorable ideas come from. So have a laugh. Hasn't changed. 100%.
If you could banish one thing from the industry, what would it be and why?
I've already mentioned them, haven't I? It's the AI chatbot bros. It's the people promising the earth, but it's really just snake oil bullshit. So all of these people saying 10x your productivity and all of that stuff. Avoid them like the plague. Good stuff takes time. You cannot rush things. I mean, is it Neil Patel, the guy? He's like a marketer guy. I remember about a year ago, I think he deleted it afterwards because he got absolutely rinsed. But he said, stop reading books. You just watch YouTube instead. How's that advice? How's that good advice? Stop reading books. Fucking hell. How's that for the next generation? It's just insane. So beware the chatbot and the AI bros promising the earth, because it's no coincidence that whenever something allegedly game-changing, cutting-edge, life-changing like this AI is purported to be, it's no coincidence that as soon as something like that comes out, every single one of my spam messages is all about AI. Now, before that, it was about NFTs. Before that, it was about metaverse. Before that, it was Viagra. So take from that what you will.
Question 3 is, it's now dedicated to Neil Patel himself. Are there any books that you can recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, there's one it's probably been on my desk now for about 9 months, and it's ace. And I've done the guy's course as well. A guy called Dan Nelkin, which copywriters out there will know Dan. Canadian guy, dead funny, really smart. He released this book, A Self-Help Guide for Copywriters, and it's basically a compendium, I suppose, of headline techniques. So how to come up with headline techniques, but it might seem just like, the headlines are the tactics, but for me, it's not. It's like how you can come up with concepts as well and campaign ideas. So coming up with the big idea, like the taglines and where the rest of the kind of idea will flow from. It allows you to kind of think up those as well. So I recommend that. Absolutely. Self-help guide for copywriters, which is ace.
Perfect. Well, there'll be a link to that in the show notes. And then number 4, we always dedicate every episode to someone, and we bestow or hospital pass that honour, depending on your view, to our guest who has to give their reason why.
Okay, so this one's dead easy, and it's the guy I'm founding the copywriting agency with. So it's Ben McKinney, good copywriter mate of mine. I've known him probably 5 or 6 years, but only really been speaking to him proper about maybe working together for the last 18 months or so. Yeah, up until 18 months ago, I was quite happy just working on my own. I thought I was happy. I escaped the job that I didn't really like, started freelancing, and I was like, this is the life for me. I'm sound, let's do this. But I've worked with him on a couple of projects over the last 18 months, and we've talked about doing this agency together. He's on my wavelength. He gets my silly humour, and he's kind of happy for me to mess around and be as silly as I can be, which I always thought, the second I team up with someone, I might have to rein it in a little bit and get a little bit serious. Whereas he's just like, no, go on, you carry on doing that type of stuff. That's what we need. So for me, he's no better person to go into business with, and we get on really well, and he's really sound. So, we're dead excited to be launching this new agency, and you'll be hearing loads more from us. God help everyone on LinkedIn. You'll be hearing so much about this agency.
Yeah, I'm going over to Threads. Well, this episode is very proudly dedicated to Ben McKinney. Fantastic. As a final call to action, everything we've discussed, from a self-help guide for copywriters by Dan Nelkin, a link to Copy or Die, because I'm hoping that it will be live by the time this episode is released. If not, you will see a link there to Dave's wonderful newsletter, The Word, so you can subscribe there and be amongst the first to find out when it is live. How else can our listeners get more Dave Harland?
God, haven't they had enough of me? I don't shut up about myself. LinkedIn definitely, which is where I post most days. Twitter is getting less and less since Elon started being weird. But if anyone's interested, I'm at WordmanCopy there. Same on the new thing, Threads. I'm at WordmanCopy, which I need more people on Threads, to be honest. It's just, Threads is basically just the people you've got on Instagram, isn't it? I've got like 200 followers, and they're all like family and friends. So I'm not expecting any imminent work, but I'll certainly be doing some daft and silly stuff on Threads as well. Yeah, website, newsletter, you've already plugged those for me. And hopefully in future, I'll have, like I said, this course about how to write funny copy, and the Uncle Tony book at some point when I finally pull my finger out.
And you're co-hosting the marketing meetup in Liverpool too.
Oh yeah, great reminder. Yeah, I'm co-hosting the marketing meetup Liverpool. So if you live in and around Liverpool, we do that every other month. It's normally the third Tuesday in the month, so it'll be like, will it be in July, August? So it'll be like third Tuesday in September, then the third Tuesday in November, that type of stuff. So if you live nearby, get yourself along to that. It's an evening thing, just 2 hours. Dead chilled out. Yeah, it's like the networking for people who hate networking. So we have a talk and free pizza and free drinks and stuff, and that's all through Joe Glover's marketing meetup, which is ace. And if you want to hear me do a talk as well, I'm speaking at CopyCon in London on the 20th of October. So any copywriters out there, I suppose, I'm doing a talk on where to find the funny in your copy, even when you're writing for the really boring brand, which I've done a little bit of that over the years. I'll be speaking there. So Like I said, I never stop plugging myself.
Well, we'll link to both of those. So that third Tuesday in September, just so our listeners know, is the 19th of September. And then the 20th of October at CopyCon. We'll stick a link in the notes for that too. So Dave, listen, mate, thank you so much for coming back. It's been ace. I've loved it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Giles. Yeah, nice one for asking me again. It's my favourite podcast. So,
soundbite alert. I'm having that.
There you go.
And finally, thank you to everyone listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do share and review the pod. Keep your questions and guest requests coming in. To get in touch, it's easy to find Gasp online, or you can just email calltoaction@gasp.agency.
I can't get no call to action. I can't get no call to action, but I try, and I try, and I try, and I try.